Hola, I'm Claudia Romo Edelman.
And I'm Cynthia Kleinbaum Milner.
And this is a podcast a la Latina.
The playbook to succeed being your authentic self.
Today, Jennifer Salinas.
Jennifer is the EVP and Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel at Cerence AI, which provides voice AI to more than 50% of the cars worldwide.
And here are the 3 key takeaways of this episode. Number 1, the art and technique of knowing your value. As much conversation there is about know your value, there is no way for us to find the roadmap. Find it here.
Number 2, as one of the most senior Latinas in the AI world, she argues that the playing field has been leveled and this is the time to get on it. And she gives us a playbook on how to learn to be AI literate.
And number 3, how a girl from a family of farmers that was a victim of domestic violence environment was able to turn that pain into ambition, drive, and success so that she can become the C-suite level executive that she is today. All of that and more here at La Latina.
Stick around. Before this episode starts, go to alalatina.com and sign up for our newsletter. We've put together a ton of career advice and worksheets that you can download to manage your career and get to the top in half the time
with half the bruises. A la Latina. Today, the incredible Jennifer Salinas.
Jennifer is the EVP and Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel at Cerence AI. She's also on the board of a nonprofit called Bottom Line, which helps first-generation students get into college and supports them all the way through getting their first job.
And we are delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here as well.
Let's start with you, your background. What made you be who you are and what you do today?
So I think the most important thing was just my upbringing, what made me who I am. In fact, I would say my very humble beginnings is honestly why I do what I do, why I serve my community, why I continue to believe that's super important, giving back. So I was born in Los Angeles, in San Pedro, and, it was a very, very, very tight-knit community. And whenever there was a problem, people rallied around each other and took care of each other. And it was more than just us, just more than you, right? You never did anything just based on what served you. You did what was best for the community as a whole and your family. And so that was so important to me, just always kind of family first, community first. To this day, that's just how I operate.
And your grandparents immigrated to the country?
Yeah, as did my mom. So my grandfather did not. He passed away in Mexico when my mom was about 12. But my mom came here, I think she was either 12 or 13. And my mom worked in the fields. She wasn't good at it. She always talks about how she was fired. And so she went from doing that to watching the children, the children at the actual location, at the wherever they were at, to then eventually being kind of sent off to watch a Caucasian's family. I was the first person in my family to graduate from high school, let alone me. Yeah, let alone go off to college and law school. But one of the things too, that's kind of something I used to not share at all. I was very kind of ashamed of it, but I grew up in a domestic violence home. And that made a huge impact on just wanting to make sure that whatever I did, I could leave a situation. I could take care of my kids. My mom did not know her rights. She stayed in a relationship that was very, very abusive, not just to her, but to her kids. But she didn't know what her options were. And she didn't leave that situation until I was in my 20s. And so it was really difficult growing up. But it was one of those things where, I like to say that I turned speed bumps into jet fuel. It just drove me that I was just going to be whatever I did. My 4th grade teacher put a bug in my head that I was going to be a lawyer. So that was I was like, all right.
Someone told you.
Yeah.
Someone told you what to do because you had absolutely no guidance,
idea, no guidance. Nobody I knew was a lawyer. And so, I just knew that whatever I did, I was going to make sure that I could take care of my kids and have options. My mom said I've always was that way. I just always had this drive. It didn't matter how many times I got knocked down. I was going to pull myself back up and continue. And I was knocked down many times. And that's okay, right? That's just made me stronger. And I think it's also just surrounding yourself with people who believe in you and constantly telling you that you can do it. So I went to law school. I knew nothing, right? Here I am, made a decision of where to go based on, I had already had a child at that time. My son was a year and I was married. And I I'm sitting in this room, it's orientation. I don't know anybody. I don't know what I'm doing here. And I see this woman and she's talking to everybody and she knows everything. And clearly she knows what she's doing. And I just immediately was like, I got to know this person, right? I just introduced myself and we hit it off. To this day, she's one of my dearest, closest friends. Her name's Chelsea Grayson. She became the CEO of American Apparel and then the CEO of True Religion. And she's just, an outstanding person. She shared with me the playbook. Like, I still had to do all the work. She didn't tell me how to do anything. I studied on my, we studied together. We were study buddies. But she imparted knowledge, like the unspoken rules. And there's so many unspoken rules in corporate America, right? There just is.
Yeah.
And for her to tell me like the importance of grades, for her to tell me the importance of studying every single day, never letting up. If I didn't know that, I think my life would have been very different. And so I just listened. I just listened and listened and listened and watched and read and studied everything I possibly could to better myself. And, I ended up graduating at the top of my class. And, but that relationship is just one example of many where I saw something and I was like, I can learn from this person. And I think that's the most important thing is that, you never stop learning, right? You continue to have to grow. You continue to just go like, this is someone that could really teach me something. And that's appealing to me. Yes.
What was that playbook and how has it changed throughout time?
Oh gosh, the playbook at that time was very tactical, right? It was study every day. It was get good grades. It was network, which I absolutely hated. I'd go into these rooms of people that looked nothing like me. And I never felt like I belonged. Most people were Caucasian. My dad didn't want us to speak Spanish. So my grandmother taught us how to speak Spanish. Like she would talk to us only in Spanish. But anyway, in the legal field, I never felt like I belonged to any particular community. Does that make sense? Like because of my circumstance, it's a very elitist profession. But, at some point in my career, I think I was about 10 years in, I just said, you know what? I don't care anymore. This is who I am. And I just became very open about my circumstance and how that drove me to where I'm at.
You just said something that we could completely flip. You said, I didn't belong, right? I'm not Mexican enough. I'm not American enough.
That's right.
But like the other way of looking at it is I can be Mexican if I want to, and I can be Caucasian if I want to. So how did your upbringing made you like maybe a better lawyer?
Being in a global company, I can navigate anything. I mean, that was what I grew up with, right? I grew up in a bicultural environment where my mom, Mexicana and all of that came with it. And my dad, American and all of that. And not having this kind of American first mindset, like, oh, it needs to be a certain way. Most of my clients were foreign, not just in Latin America, but in Asia and in Europe. And I think it's in large part because I didn't come at it like it has to be done a certain way. Americans could be really like forceful and not really read the room. I just didn't have that. And I think that's in large part because of my upbringing.
So
absolutely.
I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about your career. Quickly walk us through your career, but more importantly, what were the moments that defined your career?
So the first one is when I went into law school, I wanted to be a family law lawyer. I really felt like I needed to do something to help women who were in similar circumstances to my mom. But I worked at a public interest law firm when I was in law school, and we would go to these domestic violence shelters. It was too tough. I couldn't do it. It was too close to home. And I realized then that just couldn't be the path for me. And so early on, I knew go in a different direction. I also had the benefit of doing really well in law school. So that opened a lot of doors. And then, I went to law firms and, when I was in one thing that I, again, always observing, right? So I realized that if you have your own clients, the sky's the limit. I used to joke around that I was a mist maker before I was a sprinkler maker, before I was a rain maker, right? I started small and that was okay. And that's the other thing too. Stop focusing on what it looks like. Do what matters to develop yourself, whatever that looks like. Here I am now. I'm a partner at a law firm and I get a phone call from someone I absolutely respect, Horacio Gutierrez, who's now the General Counsel of Disney. I worked with him on a Microsoft project, and he was very complimentary. And so he reached out to me and said, I think you will do great in-house. And I'm like, what? I never thought of that. I was like, I'm a partner. I'm about to be equity partner. And he saw something in me and we had long conversations about it. And he's like, I think just the way your mind works, you would do really well in the corporation as opposed to being at a law firm. That was a huge decision for me because one, it's a huge pay cut initially. I mean, when I say huge pay cut, I mean, I was going to be making a third of what I was
And
making.
you took it.
So I interviewed for the job. I did not get it, but it put a bug in my head. And I was like, maybe he sees something that I really need to look at that I'm not seeing about myself. So fast forward a few years later, Lenovo, the computer company, was one of my clients. And they reached out to me about interviewing for the head of global litigation. Just having worked with my clients for such a long time, I did feel that I needed to be on the inside. I would use this analogy that it was like a cake. Like by the time I got the problem, the cake was done. At best, I could put some icing on it, but I didn't help bake the cake. And I felt like my skill sets would have been better served in a corporation.
You're not selling it to me at all. If somebody tells me I'm going to give you a cake, you're going to put the icing and say you bake the cake, I'm going to be like, that's the job I want.
And you're going to be paid 2/3 more than if you bake it.
So why did you do, like, what's the upside of making the cake from scratch?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it's never been about the money for me. I have to love what I do. I have to really love what I do. I mean, I think that's the biggest lesson. And I could continue on that path. I was a successful partner, equity partner at this point, but I didn't love what I was doing. It was rote. It was like the same thing. And I wanted something different. And I knew at that point that I wanted to be the general counsel of a company, of a public company. So I was very clear with my boss, like, look, I'm taking a major pay cut. I'm changing my entire life. I want to be your successor or the general counsel somewhere else. Now, obviously, I have to prove that I have the goods, right? It's still meritocracy. But I wanted her to commit to me that she would help me fill some skill gaps. That was probably the first time in my career where I was very intentional about telling people what I wanted and how they were going to help me. And she committed to that. And
But
she
like
did.
how? Like, did you get it on paper? Like, did you?
No,
Like,
it
what
was- it
happens?
was
They
good
give you
old,
an
like-
offer, and you're like, okay, I have the offer. I'm gonna sit and talk to you
Right.
before I accept the offer
That's
to tell
right.
you, okay, now you want me. Now I'm gonna tell you what I want.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a little bit more fluid than that, but that was basically it. And so I said, I'm gonna do this. One, because internally, I believe people need to bet on themselves, right? Take those risks and bet on yourself. And two, she gave me her word, and I had heard good things about her. I mean, you got to do some diligence and make sure that the person that you're talking to has a history of taking care of people. And she did. I mean, I came in and it was remarkable. I mean, I started out as the head of IP litigation, not even reporting to her directly. And within months, I became the head of all litigation, global litigation
For Lenovo.
and reporting directly to her. And then about like a year and a half in, I got an opportunity to interview to be the general counsel of one of the business units, which I absolutely needed. Like I was saying, to fill some skill gaps, I needed that experience. And I interviewed for it. My understanding is I was the only internal candidate, and I got it. Mm-hmm. And then I was still the head of global litigation and the general counsel of that business unit. And so again, was very clear, like, this is what I need to do. This is what these are the gaps I need to fill.
Path.
This is the path, right? And so then I got opportunities that would come my way and didn't feel like it was the right time. And I think that's really important. You have to look inward and ask yourself, are you really ready? I think a lot of people think that they're ready and really don't know what it takes. Because you have to be able to have that calming force, and you can't let stress get the best of you. And not a lot of people do well under that kind of pressure. And I love it. I thrive in that kind of environment. Nobody told me about IP. Nobody told me about patents and trademarks and copyrights, and that you could get your degree in math or science or computer science or electrical engineering and still go to law school.
Yeah.
So I took the conventional path of getting my degree in political science. So for me to go into the IP space without the technical degree was like unheard of.
Okay, so you get a call from a company that, had you heard of this company before?
No, I had not. So I get the call from a headhunter. I didn't know about the company, but one of the things I did know, and I think I always pride myself on this, is kind of seeing where the world is headed, right? Mm-hmm. So AI at that point in early 22, January 2022, not a lot of people knew about it, but I felt like the auto was the next smartphone, right? So if you think about what smartphones have done to our world, that's going to be the car.
The company that you joined is focused on auto?
Yeah, so primarily, although it can be leveraged in anything, and it certainly has.
What is it called?
It's called the Cerence AI. So we are we are the voice in your vehicle. So we're in about 52% of all vehicles worldwide.
You're in a very established company. There's virtually zero risk your company is going to go under. A company that you've never heard of
I know.
calls
I
you,
was like, thank
and
you.
you're like, okay, so I already took a I took a pay cut. Now let me just shake things up again, and I'm going to go to a company that may not make it. How did you decide? How do I know this one is one worth putting like my
time.
in?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, one, it had a long history. So one thing about the auto industry that I don't think people appreciate is that it's very traditional, right? And it goes back, I mean, a very, very long time. And so Cerence, although new in the sense of like it had just IPO'd in 2019, it was part of Nuance, a much larger company. But yeah, of course, I mean, was I worried? Absolutely, because you hit the nail on the head. I'm at this big company where there's no issues, right? And I'm taking this leap to a much smaller company. But again, I bet on myself. And that has never stirred me wrong. It really hasn't. Like I just had to go and take that leap of faith. And what's the worst thing that could happen? I could always go back to a law firm, right? So that's when you think about like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I worked so hard, and that is not going to be forgotten. And I have those long-standing relationships that I can always pull on if I needed to. And I think sometimes when people think, oh God, if I fail or if I make the wrong decision, it's like, it's going to determine the rest of my life in some way. I'm going to be marred, right? I'm going to have a scarlet letter. That's so not true. That's not true.
Well, the thing is that, let's go deep into this one because I think that we have never discussed this piece in the podcast. And so to know your value, you have to start from knowing it so that people cannot devaluate it.
That's right.
And I do think that we have a lot of devaluation going on, like as a community, as gender, as a number of things. If I'm Latina, I'm going to be treated this way and this way and this way. So it's hard to know your value when
you're constantly being dismissed, right?
The starting conditions are these, even if you see, and particularly because you see hard work is the way to go, but doesn't get you value.
Well, it's interesting. I love that you touched on that because there's so many values that we have as Latinas, right? Like humility, resilience, familial, communal, loyalty. Those are great values because if you think about it, like humility creates empathy. And I think being a good employer, being a good manager, being a good boss, you have to be empathetic. You have to meet people at where they're at. And so going back to like knowing my value, I knew I brought that. I knew that whatever company I went into, I would be valued because I would demonstrate that. Now, you are absolutely right. They assumed that they knew who I was, and it didn't align with who I actually am. And you're absolutely right. It comes with, and I hate that. I hate the fact that I have to prove that I'm different than what they think I am, right? Like, oh, they see like, oh, you're, attractive and you're emotional or whatever, you're all these things, but they don't see that what that actually translates to. Being that person who I am makes me a better boss. I want to talk about loyalty for a second though, not to because I just want to make sure I hit on this. I probably let loyalty stand in the way many times in making decisions and probably stayed at places longer than I should have. I heard the statistic years ago that Latinos stay at a company on average 24 months longer than the average non-Latino, which is great for employers, but not great necessarily for the employee. So I started telling people, I said, listen, if you weren't working out for the company, I don't know a lot of companies that would let loyalty stand in the way of making a decision to part ways with you.
Yeah.
So you need to look at it from their perspective. You need to look at it through their lens. If it's no longer working for you, move on. A company is a legal construct. It's not a human being. It's not tangible. So why are you giving so much to this?
But I don't know. I feel like it's a combination of, yes, loyalty and loyalty maybe because we are so thankful that we were given an opportunity.
Yes.
But also the risk aversion of like I have like a paycheck coming every month. the grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go out. So it's probably a combination of.
But also the value of loyalty. Latinos are literally more loyal to
They
their
are.
families, to their values.
But we also need to recognize when it's not serving us anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not an all or nothing proposition, right? You don't need to suddenly not be loyal anymore. You just have to know, like with anything in life, when it's no longer serving you in that particular circumstance.
Right.
Be loyal to yourself.
I think that part of what I want this episode to say is a clear message to all Latinas about the importance of knowing your value, not only by understanding the data and that basically there's absolutely no way a company can hire and sell or supply from without Latinos. So
That's
we're
right.
like in that
That's right.
piece, but also on the pieces that we bring to corporations because of who we are.
That's right.
The loyalty, which translates to this, the social, which translates to that. So that translation is a matter of education and awareness to make sure that you know your value, and then you're able to advocate and promote and all the pieces, which I don't think we have enough of. I don't think we have enough awareness and education and role models of know your value.
And I think that's one of our superpowers that we absolutely bring. And when they start seeing that in droves, because it's the numbers game. They're going to see it. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
I have a last question, which is, you got a playbook early on in your career. What is the playbook that you have now that you would like to share with our audience?
So we talked about kind of going full circle. I'm going to say, don't sacrifice your values. You know, one of the firms I was at, I had a very abusive boss. I mean, he was just horrible. Like, he was just horrible to work with. And I not only decided to leave the firm because it was better for my career, but I also realized I could never work with someone like that ever again. And so don't sacrifice what you know to be true in an unhealthy environment, because it just won't serve you long term. And so the most important thing is just take care of yourself mentally. Just take care of your mental health. Make sure that whatever environment you are in, you're thriving. And if you're not in an environment where you're thriving, go somewhere else.
It's so interesting because I would say, if you would ask me of the key moments that have pushed me forward, they're never pleasant. They're always a challenge.
I'm not saying it has to be easy. Like, I tell my kids all the time, like, doing what you love doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy, by no means. So I don't want to suggest that it's going to be easy, because I agree with you. I mean, what's shaped me so much has been those difficult situations. But yeah, so I think it's more about just healthy environments. They may be tough. You may have to work hard. There may be a lot of challenges, but that's different than being in an unhealthy environment where someone's just not a good person.
So now let's talk about AI.
Yes.
I'm very interested in your perspective on how can we actually become good at AI. Like, what would you say? How can people, Latinas, get their hands on tools that will make them like ideal employees or entrepreneurs or users or builders of AI tools?
Buy some books, first off.
Which ones?
Well, oh my gosh, it's a good
The
question.
machine experiment. I just got one.
Exactly. That's
The
like
machine experiment?
Yeah, I mean, that's one that everybody's kind of turning to. Take some courses. LinkedIn Learning has some great courses on AI and leveraging AI, whether it's for your team, whether it's you personally. I think that because it's so new still for so many people, it's a level playing field if you think about it, right? It is a level playing field. How often are you presented with a field at its early stages, right?
Yeah.
And we don't even know how that's going to shape us. But because of that, that's opportunity.
Yeah.
That's for you to go and learn something. And whether it's coding or non-coding, I think it's by Jeffrey Moore. There's a book called Catching the Wave. I think it's called Catching the Wave. It's all about all these companies. When Blockbuster was presented with Netflix, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they turned down that deal. And, Netflix obviously then took off because they just didn't see the vision of where it was going. And I think so many companies are at this inflection point where, do I go down this path? And there's a lot of fear, right? Because they're like,
Right.
well, then what does that mean for me?
My husband is launching a research in a couple of weeks that interviewed Americans. And that's 78% of the respondents are afraid of AI and want it to slow down.
Yeah.
And to be fair, a lot of the jobs that will come from the marketing agents that, like we're going to be replaced, probably are going to be hitting us. So
That's absolutely
what's the
right.
message?
So, the thing about that's true. That's going to happen. You can't change that. Like, I think that ship has sailed, as they say. So there's going to be, we need to reskill people. I mean, we absolutely need to reskill things. It's going to be, and this is where Latinas, this is kind of phenomenal for us. It's going to be about the soft skills. It's going to be about the subjectivity. And you can't replicate that.
The caring, the subjectivity, the soft skills, but also because we're so entrepreneurial, get your act together, not only kill it as a student and build a network, but also start reskilling yourself because we're so entrepreneurial. Start looking at, okay, so what is it that you like so that you can start getting.
That's right.
Last question. If you could give yourself advice looking back to when you were around 30 years old, I don't know, what were you doing at 30 years old? You had a kid and you were graduating law school?
No. I was already practicing law for a few years on the partnership track, killing myself, if you will. I mean, like just working really hard. At that point, I had two kids.
Which advice would you give to that mother of two killing herself?
Yeah. Don't be so hung up on what people think.
Okay.
Yeah.
The race is only with yourself.
Correct. That's right.
Jennifer, I cannot be more grateful for your time and your wisdom and sharing with us and the vulnerability as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing because it's pretty phenomenal. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. We love it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We do. Well, and I think that with advice and wisdom, we're going to be able as a community to lead and succeed. ¡A la Latina!